Hi guys, my name is Nima Digela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about, okay, let's call this video Smoke, Mirrors, and Manufactured Case, the truth about the Senzo Meyiwa trial because wow, Sanalam, what a wow. The modus operandi in the Senzo Meyiwa trial or murder trial now reads less like a criminal investigation and more like a case study in the smoke and mirrors don't own. Because what is this? What is this, Sanela? What is this, girl? Cha, yo, I, Sanela. Ay. From the very beginning, the state builds its case around the five men from KwaZulu-Natal, KwaNongoma. Five suspects, one narrative, and a convenient label called contract killing. That was Geninda's dose, eh? It was Geninda that came up with that. But labels are not evidence, most right? They are not evidence. And reputation does not turn speculation into proof. You need to bring proof of the contract killing. You need to bring that. The prosecution hoped that public outrage over Senzo Meyiwa's tragic death would do what their evidence could not, fill in the massive gaps. Njani sana, Tina, we want to know who killed Senzo, not what they are expecting from us. Never. What they did not anticipate was public scrutiny. South Africans have been watching this trial closely, not casually, not emotionally, but analytically, and and what they've seen is a case stitched together from contradictions, from point A to point Z. We were told about a mysterious hostel bride where a confession allegedly happened over meat and fire without recording, without affidavits, without corroboration. Remember that confession? Allegedly, that was accused number one saying, guys, did you hear Senzo died the same night? That was Constable Zungu putting that six-gun spice there. Yes. We were told about cell phone pings that somehow prove presence. Do you remember that? Who's that man from George? Who's that man from George? House and who's the one from George? I forgot now this old man's name. The white man, I forgot his name. Him. Yes, they were telling us about cell phone pinging in of accused number 3. That is perhaps somehow how they were proving presence of the accused there at the Khumalo home, and yet place no one at the crime scene at the time of the murder. We were told about cell phone pings, but no one was placed at the crime scene by any evidence. We were told about confessions, later withdrawn, disputed, contradicted, or allegedly coerced by these people. They are saying that they are withdrawing, the accused are withdrawing their confessions, and also the accused are saying, no, me, I did no such. I did no such. They forced all of that to me. It's a lot, guys. It's a lot. It's going south every time they bring a new witness. And when we were told this is a contract killing without a contract, without money trails, without communications between supposed masterminds and alleged hitmen, that's where things fell apart. Because the so-called confession, the so-called contact communication with accused number 5 and Kelly Khumalo, and accused number 3 and Kelly Khumalo does not exist according to the network, which is Vodacom. And this isn't investigation, most, because things are falling apart. It was narrative engineering. Every time witness takes the stand, the cracks widen. Timeline shifts, details mutate, statements don't align. And instead of the state confronting those contradictions with fresh evidence, they try to patch them over with inferences. Does that even help? They lean on assumptions, hearsay, courtroom theatrics, and selective interpretation of data. Meanwhile, what's missing is the one thing that matters in a murder trial: proof. Proof, because weapon is very questionable. Everything that has to do with the so-called weapon that was used is very questionable. No, the forensic trail is also, sorry, very questionable of the forensic trail of the witness. The other forensic trail that is questionable is the cell phone data evidence. Very questionable. No eyewitness is placing the accused at the crime scene. No digital footprints showing coordination. No physical evidence tying up or tying any of the five men to Senzo Meyiwa's killing. None of that. Yet the state insists, please trust us. How dare you, Balwe? How dare you, Gininda? What are we supposed to trust? But trust is not a legal standard, most, is it? Beyond the evidence or the lack of it, there is a deeper, more disturbing pattern emerging. Instead of pursuing every credible lead, the investigation narrowed itself to one storyline and refused to let it go, even though it was not helping anyone. Alternate suspects were sidelined, the people that were inside the house. Contradictory witness statements were minimized. Inconsistencies were explained away rather than resolved. And when those inconsistencies surfaced in court, the response wasn't transparency. It was defensiveness, which is not even helping anyone at this point. And then there was judicial interventions that blurred the line between referee and participant. Prosecutorial persistence in pushing witnesses into predetermined narrative, and repeated attempts to rehabilitating a broken testimony instead of confronting the reality. This case does not hold together. Whether bayafuna uyivuma lonto or abafuni, the bottom line is it's cracking. What makes this moment historic is not just what's happening inside the courtroom, it's what's happening outside it. South Africans are no longer passive consumers of state narratives. They are watching, they are dissecting, they are comparing scripts, testimony, timelines, and contradictions on real time, Gesan. On real time. They discuss, they have podcasts, they have lives, they have TikTok live, they have social media engagement about the case. And they are refusing to accept a story built on hearsay bribes, disputed confessions, cell phone pings that place no one at the crime scene, and contract killing theory with no contract. This isn't justice. It's a story held together by assumptions. And Gininda perhaps is the writer of the book, I don't know. Seemingly. And assumptions do not convict in a constitutional democracy. The tragedy of Senzo Meyiwa deserves the truth, not convenience, not shortcuts, not scapegoats. If the state truly wanted justice, it would have welcomed scrutiny, but they keep shielding all of that. It would embrace contradiction as a signal to investigate deeper. But no, they want to be defensive. It would abandon a broken theory and follow the evidence wherever it leads, but they don't do that. Instead, we are watching a prosecution that seems more invested in defending a narrative than discovering the truth. And that is why the trial has become bigger than the accused. It's no longer about them now. It has become a referendum on the integrity of our criminal justice system now. Because if a murder case of this magnitude can be prosecuted on smoke mirrors and hearsay, then no one is safe from narrative justice. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever, but the public is watching. And this time, they are not buying the story. Senzo Meyiwa deserves justice, not what is happening in that courtroom. Guys, what are your thoughts when it comes to all of this? Let's talk comment section. I want to hear your views. Thank you so much. I will see you on our next video. Bye-bye.